Okay, for those joining our live stream, this is a meeting about a curious topic. We want to represent everything about the world in Wolfram Language, and among the things we have to represent are things like phone numbers and people's names and so on. So this is the story. Okay, so the concept here is to introduce a phone number wrapper. That will be the return from interpreter phone number, the default return from interpreter phone number. Is that correct? By the way, we have a bunch of background noise. Can you mute that, please?
Yes, so that's the idea. So it would be a function that it's able to take a string, parse it as much as possible, and then typeset it nicely.
So our concept here is that we would have something much like, would it be like, so let me give an analogy. I mean, is it like data object where I could say, you know, can I do this? Yes, I can do that.
Exactly. And the output contains things already typeset, already prepared so that typesetting works faster.
Right. But so what we've done in this case is it just looks like that. I mean, so arguably, this should be an association inside. By the way, well, you have a lot of background noise, Jose. I don't know quite why, like wind noise type thing. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So the important thing is to have a canonical form, whatever it is, and the difficult part is to have a parser which is able to canonicalize things as much as possible.
Now, why didn't that work?
Precisely, the date string parsing is quite difficult, so it has limitations. We know that.
But on the other hand, if I say control equals noon Jan 1st, why don't we loop this through the external parser if we have to in a case like that? And by the way, why did this come back as a data object that looks like that rather than coming back as a, why does it, I mean, that is the correct result there, but
yes, so that's the older notation. So yeah, could come back directly as the new.
Look at the input form. Did it update to a new notation?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, it looks fine there. So if I, okay, right. So with respect to phone numbers, what are we doing in control equals? What do we do with phone numbers? That's interesting. It knew what that was. Huh. That's a weird assuming it knew what it was, but it did, I mean, it did something. It obviously knew that was a phone number. Otherwise, it wouldn't have parenthesized the area code. I don't quite understand what that did, and that should probably be, that should certainly be cleaned up. This referring to special numbers is totally weird. Also, I note the presence of an extra space there, which is a bug. Okay, fine. So let's go back to phone number.
But interpreter doesn't call alpha for phone numbers. So basically, what we did with Sarah is that we used an external library, which is basically the de facto standard for the industry, and internally we get a lot more information than we spit out. And so I think it would be a great idea to actually have a wrapper. And the only reason we're not exposing all the other information that we get is that we didn't have a wrapper at the time.
Okay, fine. Well, let's just design it. I mean,
we also have a formatter. There are at least like two kind of number formats that you can use. One is the one you're seeing now. This is more like a machine one, the one you're outputting now.
Yes.
And then, like according to you know, like countries and stuff, there is also like a default human readable format that is using dashes and parentheses and so on.
Sure. Which varies from, well, the parentheses. What is that background noise? Please. The parentheses I'm not so keen on. The dashes seem useful. I mean, I think even in the US that the parentheses for area codes is definitely looks a bit dated these days. What do people think? Anybody got an opinion? Alan, do you have an opinion?
not a strong one. I guess I agree that the parentheses don't seem quite as standard these days.
Yeah, because nobody can do. Can you even do? Okay, this shows my utter naivete and my lack of actual communication with the direct phone system.
Who has a landline where you're calling a lot of people who are in the same area code, and you.
But can you still do that? You can dial in like an area code 217. You can dial without an area code if it's in the same area code. Is that true or not?
Haven't had a landline in more than a decade, so I have no idea.
Does anybody on this call know?
Well, I don't know in the US, but here you have to dial usually without the area code if you are in the same area.
I can tell you that in Italy, there has been a big campaign where when cell phones started becoming popular, and which forces always everyone to add the area code. And it's been like 15 years ago. So you can't.
So basically, all right. So look, we shouldn't. Okay, so apparently in Pennsylvania you have to use an area code even if you're calling across the street. Is that true in Illinois and area code 217 or not? Who knows? Anyway, the fact that none of us.
I just tried it on my phone right now and it automatically added an area code.
Okay, fine.
So
fine. All right. So I think we should assume that we're just using the dashes notation, no parentheses. I think this is old school. As the default output. Let me just save this in external reference. Okay, so somebody is yeah, okay. Okay. +41. Oh, I see. Okay. So you're saying this is from documentation for lib phone number. Yeah, this is good. So this makes perfect sense. So that's the standard international format within the country. It's that. What the heck is that? That's from like Italy or something, right? Because within the UK, that would be 0668. Well, what are we even talking UK? 41 is, where is 41? Switzerland?
Yes. I guess it's Swiss, yes.
Yeah, Switzerland. So I have no idea what that looks like within Switzerland. Okay, that's plausible for what it looks like within Switzerland.
Yeah, indeed here, for example, for regional, let's say, calling, you need to add the 0. So
right.
If you want to,
that's pretty common, and there's also it always used to be the case. There was the notion of an entry code and an exit code for countries, but maybe the exit code, like in the US, if you want to dial, not on a cell phone, you would dial 011 and then the country code and number. Do people know that, or is that like ancient history now?
Yeah, I knew that, but and here, for example, it was 00. So yes, in each place you have a different international exit code. That's right.
Right. Okay. All right. Fine.
But in general, like if we have like entity like Italy, Germany, whatever, you can ask for the formatted phone for that country. Because here there are like all phone formatters for each country.
Okay, in the slib phone number thing. Apparently Wikipedia also has a big page for this. Let me just look at what they have to say about this.
And we also have stuff that we currently don't extract, but we should probably extract, like, can it receive SMSs and stuff like that?
Yes, that would be useful. Okay, fine. All right, terrific. So, all right, so let's just agree what this thing is going to look like. So it's going to be, say, phone number, and then it's going to be an association. So there are two issues we have: what the phone number association looks like, and what, and then we can make queries into the association to do various things, and then what the print form looks like. And I think the print form should be, I would suggest it's this international form like this. Does that make sense? Or should we do it the same way we do time zones, where if it's within the country, it formats in a national way. I kind of think we should standardize on this. The only other question is whether, if it's not within the country, whether the phone number should say what country it's in the formatted form. Am I making sense? Anybody want to comment on that? Should that?
Yeah, there is also another issue. I mean, if you are not providing like a prefix to this wrapper, then the library don't know what to do. But you can specify a default one. That of course can depend on your.
Yeah, but I mean, it's. I mean, look.
What I'm saying is that if you are in the US, probably makes sense to assume.
I mean, this is already what we do with interpreter. I think that you can try, like right now, if you write the same call you had above with interpreter, you can remove +1, and it will return.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll do the right thing. But what happens if I was geolocated in some other country?
Exactly. Well, what I'm saying is that we need to have a way to specify like a country if you want to.
I mean,
so like, I assume in this country, you know what?
In interpreter, we do. I think that what we can do is that we can have a default constructor for phone number that's just a string that does whatever interpreter does if you don't provide a restriction, or you can put in country goes to blah, or prefix goes to blah, or ISO code actually is supported as well, and then we flesh out the association by taking that as the restriction.
That's fine. Probably we should support in control equals. We should support things about phone number in country X and so on. All right, so just to understand, I should look at the lib phone number. I mean, we probably don't need to go through all of this right now. It's wait a minute. Why am I okay? So highlights of functionality. Okay. Oh, gets a confidence level on whether two numbers could be the same. Wow. Okay. Provides geographic information related to a phone number, to carrier mapper, okay, to time zones. That's interesting. So it maps, so it has a way. So for example, things like this should probably work. Local time of phone number. Am I making sense? Just like local time of United States. I don't know what it does actually. We'll find out what it does. What does it do? That's a little weird. Why does it pick GMT -4?
It probably is resorting to a default position for the US.
Okay.
I mean, if you do geoposition of United States or United States of position.
Well, I would think it would give someone in Kansas, which wouldn't be GMT -4.
I think we are defaulting to the largest city for countries.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, but so that should work, and presumably find geolocation of a phone number should work.
Yeah, I don't know how precise it can be. I don't think
it's not very precise.
No, I mean, what I'm saying is that I don't think they have metadata that go beyond the national level. So
okay, but we have it for area codes in the US. Not that it really means anything anymore with cell phones, but I mean, we have all the detailed information for all the area codes.
Right, for landlines might make sense, but for cell phones right now, I think it's national anywhere.
Oh yeah, somebody is asking very sensibly on the live stream, how will phone number handle extensions? Extensions are such a can of worms.
Well, what does it do right now? If you type, I don't know, 444 after the
let's say splat. Okay, so I mean, the other question is things where it goes into dialing.
What if you remove the X? Because I think I read something in the documentation saying that in some countries extra letters are ignored. So
okay, so hold on. So one of the issues is extension numbers / dialing conventions. Okay. And we've clearly got some funky ones like I mean, we've got all kinds of corner cases, like my sat phone, which has a 3-digit e.g., sat phones with no country code.
Also, I think special phones, I don't know if we want to represent them. For example, operators usually have a special phone like 123 for calling the operator, things like that.
If they still have an operator, I don't even know what happens. Okay.
No, well, the sales
Operator,
market or whatever, yes.
Emergency services, all those kinds of good things. I mean, yeah, right. Like in the US, 411, 311, 911, etc.
Yeah, for example, here they put backwards the 199 as 116 for emergency.
Okay. Well, that's a completely separate issue, which I wonder whether we have that data in Wolfram Alpha, the emergency numbers for different countries. If we don't, we should put that in. Seems useful. Seems useful. Okay. Let's see. Someone on the live stream is saying that a phone number has a perspective whether it is a local number or an out of area number. I'm not sure if that's a concept really. Yes, it would be nice if there was a way to ask the language how to dial a number from a specific location. I agree. So because the issue here, okay, so let's first of all, let's think about the actual association that we have here. Okay, so where is the thing? Can somebody show me from this lib phone number or whatever it is thing, what, I mean, I'm seeing here a bunch of description about get phone number, able to distinguish fixed line, mobile, toll-free, etc. Okay, so that presumably becomes a, okay, so there's presumably a number type or just a type that gets those kinds of things canonicalized. That's part of, and I wonder whether in the print form that should be displayed, some of those things. Anybody got an opinion about that? Okay, so we've got the pure, how do we write the number inside this association? Is there a canonical way to do that provided by this? Can somebody respond, please?
I mean, that's mostly, these things come out of Java as all caps strings.
Okay, but what are the strings? What are the elements of the association?
I mean, it depends what we ask of it.
No, I understand, but what does it generate? What's okay? What does it generate for? Yeah. So okay. So there's the failure case, right? Failure case should be things like, failure, not a valid phone number format. And that should be something that those failures, right, in the case of a form, should be the things that come out, as the messages. Make sense? Yes?
Yeah, I think so. But we have to be very sure that it's a wrong number and not a number we don't know how to parse.
I understand. We're going to get to that. I assume that this library does a pretty good job of non-extension numbers, right? Okay, so can we? Could you just generate whatever the falsehoods?
So I think the question will be, what are the properties of this object in the library?
Yes, exactly.
So the thing is that it's not necessarily properties. Some of these things are methods. So it's not like, actually most of these things are methods. So it's not free. Like once you parse the number, it's not necessarily free to get the other stuff out.
Okay, fine.
But it's reasonably fast. So, I mean, it's not calling an external service or anything. It's just a Java library. All the metadata is local. So.
Okay. Okay. It's interesting that there are this claim that phone numbers have only one prefix at a given time. That's very weird. Okay. apparently there's a testing thing here. Specify a phone number. Okay. Specify a default country. Specify a carrier code. Okay. Two-letter country code, US. Okay. 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 Is valid short number, is possible short number. Fixed line or mobile, great, that's useful. What happens if I type in, okay, here's another question.
You can, for example, for Italy.
Yeah, well, hold on, what happens if I type that?
They work.
Okay, so that's something we should document, that things like that work.
I'm not entirely sure that we actually allow it right now, but
okay. Well, so hold on. Corner cases are spelled numbers. Well, let's see if we allow it. So we have an interpreter here. Nope. Okay, so that's another thing to worry about. Okay, so there are various types here, which will include things like toll-free, fixed or mobile, which appears to be a necessary thing, etc. Okay, so the question is, okay, so we'll need something which is kind of E164, I guess, version. I mean, we're going to just put a bunch of things in this association.
I think it should be called string, E164 string.
Okay.
Because, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that will be +1, 217, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Then we need a way to give the local thing, the local string, whatever that should be. I mean,
well, national, not local.
No, I understand. But it seems, according to those FAQs, it was pointing out that there isn't necessarily a single national string. But I mean, we could say national string, international string.
And why not national number, international number?
Well, because they are a string, I guess.
Yeah, maybe number string. I don't know. The thing is that, yeah, if you return an integer, it could be really bad.
No, it's hopeless.
No, sure, because you need the zeros, of course, but
right. Okay, well, so something like this. So now, and then the accessors for this thing. Well, then we also need something that says country. Do we want to break the thing down into a country code and the number?
I think it will be useful to have the country code there, because many times you need to do something special with the country code if you want to call from, for example, paid operators. I don't know who.
Yeah, but okay, but country code. Well, so then we've got country, which is an entity. Country code, which is something like
+1 plus whatever.
Well, you think it's +1 or it's what are these guys? Okay, well, it's either that or it's 44 or it's, you know.
Oh, you're right, without the plus, really. Yeah.
And it's actually, the country code could be an integer, I think. So that's a thing to worry about. Then, okay, so in a first approximation, we got these things. Now, how do you get, I think we probably have region, if we know it. And there's also these things about whether it can receive SMS and so on, if we can figure that out. So, okay, you guys should work out the details of this, but I think Let's talk about extension numbers for a second. And I don't know what to do with the country, the case of country for sat phones.
I have a question about extensions, because I really don't know how.
Hold on. Can we talk for a second about sat phones, please? About country entities that aren't countries and what we do.
Well, we have the world entity, or we could have a missing not applicable for them, and also make them valid to be.
Yeah,
Well,
I like this better.
Yeah, I think it's better. Yeah. Yes, actually, somebody on live stream points out country calling code would be probably a better name for that. Okay, missing satellite phone. It's a slightly bizarre case of missing, but informative. Okay, let's talk about extension numbers. And then you can hear my beef about extension numbers. I mean, the fact is there are two issues. One is the just recording an extension number, and the other is being able to dial the extension number, right? So, you know, in the old-fashioned world of putting commas in phone numbers to generate pauses, right? That's the convention that started off with modems, calling numbers, auto dialers, and so on. I mean, for our purposes, okay, so question, like the Twilio interface, for instance, what can one put into the Twilio interface? Can one put extension numbers into the Twilio interface? Anybody know?
But can I ask a very basic question? Like,
yes.
Like if I want to call somebody's extension at Wolfram,
yep.
do I like dial it all at once with the extension, or do I have to wait?
You have to wait.
Until somebody
we happen to have a direct inward dialing mechanism, but in general, you have to wait. And for example, our internal VoIP phone system, for amazingly, still after all these years, does not have the ability to code in delays, pauses like that. Which means that when you dial the conference phone bridge thing, you actually have to dial it on a phone, which is infuriating. But I mean, in most of the world, you put a comma in to get a pause of I don't know how long it is.
I mean, as far as I know, in Italy, when you're calling, suppose I'm trying to call a big public office, like I just call a normal number when I want to get the extension, and the central phone when I want to talk to an operator and ask for an extension is shorter than most phones. So like extensions don't really exist as such.
That's really weird. That's really weird.
Twilio API is accepting extensions. So
how does it specify them?
I'm not sure if it's part of the wrapper directly, but basically what it's doing is that it does the number and then it waits, then it starts using basically emulating a person dialing the extension. So it's waiting for the actual phone to pick up.
Okay, but I bet it has some waiting convention, because normally yes. you put commas in. So the question for us here is, should we have I forget what those things are called. They were let's see. Yeah, well, it's interesting that everybody seems to have a yeah, everybody is using. Okay, so there's a 2-second, a comma appears to be a 2-second pause. And there seems to be a semicolon, which means wait for something. Maybe wait for a dial tone. Oh, no, that's an on-screen prompt, but I think there's also a wait for a dial tone mechanism. These are, let's see. Gosh, this is, okay, Well, again, we need to, somebody probably in the sysadmin group probably knows this. Okay, hold on a second. Send digits attribute tells Twilio to send DTMF tones when the call is answered. Okay, but there will be something, I don't know whether it's this, equals wait for dial tone. Incidentally, one of those curious things that we could add to Wolfram Alpha would be what the ringing tone sounds like in different countries. That would be an amusing audio identify thing to have. You know what I'm saying? Like you call a country, you could typically tell what country a person with a cell phone is in because you will get the local ringing sound of that country. People know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I think it's hopeless. I've seen vanity ring, like internal ringtones. Like you could
really?
pay, yeah, like some cell phone company would let you like play this music when people call.
Okay.
That was super weird.
Fine. Okay. All right.
Here they put publicity.
Oh, really?
Why?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Forget that idea. All right. Okay, what are we going to do with extension numbers? I mean, I think what we should do probably.
Sorry, Stephen. A related thing with the music. There's a sound that you do when you type on the keys. I don't know if they are the same with all the phones.
What, the DTMF code tones? The thing that
if I press a 1 or 2 or 3, it's a different.
Yes. Those are two tones that was invented by Bell Labs back in the day. I'm pretty sure it's the same everywhere.
So we could do something that converts. I don't know. Yeah,
that would be cute to have a DTMF reader. I mean, I don't think anybody cares anymore. Back when there were blue boxes and things, people cared a lot. But now I think that's old news. All right, so extension. Again, roughly what we might do then. What are we going to do? We've got to canonicalize an extension somehow. Right? How does it come out canonically? If you type in a phone number with an extension, right? So let's say I type in some phone number with an extension. Like this, then what is the canonical way that it should come out? Anybody got an opinion about this? I think the group of people in this call may not be the best ones to answer this question, but I think we need some way to, I mean, are we going to process the phone number and then look for an X or an EXT, or, you know, there are a variety of different linguistics that one can use to specify an extension, right? There can also be commas that literally are specifying the pauses. Oh boy, apparently hash sign also used to specify an extension. Okay, so look, my suggestion is that we parse this thing. Yeah, I think we have to parse it into these things that are separately the, you know, international number string and the extension. And the extension will basically just be, what would it end up being? I mean, it should be canonicalized to something which has pauses followed by digits to dial. Am I making sense?
Yes, unless there is some local way of presenting it.
Right.
Yeah, but I think, for example, having the comma and then a white space and then the number will be a nice way to canonize, because it's something you can understand, that there is some kind of extra number you have to dial after the main number.
Yes, well, that's fine. I mean, I think that but okay, so let me make one more point here, which is these vanity numbers. Like, where do we keep the vanity number? If you type in, you know, I mean, in our phone number, do you get what I'm saying? Okay, so we could arguably say display string, okay, which would include things like the, you know, 1-800 Wolfram number. Does that make sense? In other words, we would preserve that if we know we can, because, you know, if you type that in, you probably want to preserve that form. Comments? Anybody got comments on that?
I mean, I think that the library already kind of does the right thing. Like when you ask for whatever string version you get the. I mean, if you look back at that web page,
Yeah, you could
some
parse it,
versions
yeah. You could
turn
parse
into numbers, some don't.
Right. Okay.
So
All right.
why not
Listen,
keep it? I wonder
yeah.
if we could have a cute thing that would generate some strings that looks good, given a phone number. I don't know if it's any. Maybe nobody cares.
What?
Doing the reverse operation, like you have a number and then it gives a string that, you know, would both look.
Oh yeah,
good
yeah.
in
We've
terms
had
of-
that. That's a cute. There's demonstrations and things. That would be it's a fine function repository entry. We have a suggestion on our live stream to do things like this, which, yeah, I mean, that's definitely relevant. Look, I think we have to just play around with this extension thing. Pointing out that this is, yeah, actually, you're right. This is the input string, not the, I don't know whether it's the display string or the input string. I mean, yes, arguably it is the input string.
So we should maybe keep the input string. So how the user
I
input
see.
that, which is different from the final display, I think.
Right. Okay. All right. That's enough for phone numbers. I think we have what we need to go ahead and start implementing this. Agreed?
One more question. So I'm worried about localization, because if I create one of these phone number objects when I'm in Spain, then can I use it when I'm in the US?
Okay, that's a really good question. Because like time zone, it has to do the same thing that data object does with time zone, I think.
Right. Well, the language of time zones is independent of the country where it was created.
No, I understand that. But if you make a now on your computer and then you move your computer, it will correctly know what the time was when you created that now, because it will burn in. I mean, if I do that right here, right. It will burn in the input form, it will burn in time zone -4.
Exactly.
Right. So.
But here we are already adding this country calling code, so that's, I think, fine.
Yeah, we need to make sure that it has enough country-independent information so that it can recover anywhere.
Well, right, but the question is within a country. Okay, so let's talk about the display format. No, you see, this isn't right, because national number string might be the originating national number. Is it the current national number string or the string in the originating country? See? I mean, in other words, what should happen is when you ask for the phone number, it figures out what country you're in when you're asking for the phone number. It then burns in that country. It then knows that you get what I'm saying? I mean, arguably, national number string should not be generated, should be computed every time based on what country you're actually in. Or is that the number string that you would dial within the country that the thing happens to be in? You get what I'm saying? Because otherwise, if you have a number that's in Spain, for example, and you type it in when you're in Spain, and then you come to the US, then the question is, what would you dial? In order to actually get to the phone number, what do you dial? Because if you're in Spain, you don't want to dial the international number string, right?
Right.
Okay, so arguably, we want something else that's called dialable string, dialing string. And that would also deal with things like extension numbers, you know, string for dialing from the country you're in.
But I'm not sure that should be for an accessor, probably, because you want to form that.
No, I understand. That's an accessor. That's not. I mean, it could be generated and put in the association because it's cheap to generate. Am I making sense? Okay, so
that could be confusing if you already have that there. I think.
Why? I mean, well, whatever. Okay, accessor only ? Okay, you guys need to work through more details of this because we need to go on to the next topic. Okay, so our next topic is personal names, right? Well, or do we want to, should we talk about physical addresses or should we talk about personal names?
Perhaps addresses are easier.
You really think so?
Yes, I agree with Jose.
Okay. I mean, I don't know why you think this is the right thing. I mean, even in England, for example, a very common thing in England, at least back in the day, was names of houses, which is not listed in here.
This is the average format that the Wikipedia page gives. Then it lists all the variants for every country, which is a very long list.
Okay. But so what this is, I mean, what is the use case for this? So, I mean, the use case is that we just want a way of storing an address where it is easy to where it's easy to extract pieces. So what do we want to have work on this? Geolocation should work on a physical address. Accessors like physical address. You, by the way, you still have really weird background noise. I think it's you, Jose.
I'm sorry about that.
Now we don't hear that, so I think there's a bug and something to do with the way you're connected. Okay, so then, what other things should you be able to do for physical address? You should be able to know country, you should be able to know city, etc. Right? What else do we want to be able to do with a physical address? Ultimately, well, okay, you want some kind of display form of the thing. You know, you want a address label, basically, which would be the thing stacked in a way that would be suitable for an address label. What else?
In the first line, you mean find geolocation, right? Rather than geolocation.
I don't see why geolocation shouldn't work. I mean,
it's an option right now, geolocation, not a function.
I didn't mean geolocation, I meant geoposition.
Oh, geoposition, sorry. Yeah.
And by the way, geolocation should be an option up here with phone numbers. If you say, you know, if you say phone number, so you say phone number, blah, 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 geolocation, arrow, Switzerland, for example, it should interpret that phone number with geolocation Switzerland.
Do you mean that the default is $geolocation?
That is correct. Yes. So that phone number, so in the unlikely event that you give in the US a phone number without an area code, it should be able to do something there. Although frankly, I think that's a luxury. Make sense?
Yep.
And our default, just to be clear, our default display would say something like phone number. What are we going to do? We'd say it's like a data object. It would be an object there, an object with a little phone icon, and then you know, +1 dash whatever. Makes sense?
Yeah, I think so.
By the way, the other thing that was in there, which we should have, is carrier, if known. Now, I don't know how we canonicalize them, and there we're going to need entity canonicalization for carriers.
Company data, maybe?
Yeah, it's basically company data. Although there may be finer gradations for carriers. I don't know whether different brands of one company are separated.
And also something that might be interesting to have, for example, here we have a couple of carriers that are shared in all Latin America. I don't know if maybe we want to canonize them in a different way than use a company.
Yes, it's a single network, right?
Yeah, and for example, now some of these carriers are starting to allow calls between different countries without any extra international fee, for example.
Okay. Oh, by the way, Interpreter apparently already uses geolocation, so that's good for these things. Yeah. Okay. So that's a question: is whether. Oh boy. I mean, in a luxury case, right? We could have something about well, what is does it count as an international call, etc. I have no idea whether that's I don't no idea whether that's at all algorithmically determinable. All right, let's go on because we need to.
Probably not for the US because I think +1 is shared with Mexico and Canada, right?
That's correct. Yes, Sandra is pointing out that in Japan, addresses are much more complicated. I mean, what are we trying to do with physical address? We're trying to get something where we can break the pieces of address apart like this. Is it the case that our geocoder will do that? Does the geocoder do that? If I say find geolocation, is there a stage at which it knows I mean, that's probably just going to give me a location, right? But is there a stage at which it knows what the subparts of that address are?
I think, yes, they try to parse and they have more information than the one that we specify.
All right, so why don't you look into that and why don't you see whether we can actually get pieces like this? Oh, that's an interesting point. Somebody's making that can we generate the postal barcode? Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I don't know whether those are, I'm sure those are country specific. Well, postal code, and then there would be, for the extra luxury, there's postal barcode. All right, let's talk for a minute about names and see just how. So I think the next step with this is go find out what our geolocation capabilities are in terms of parsing addresses. Make sense?
Just one question. Physical address in the Wikipedia refers to computer memory addressing. So do you think physical address is the right name?
What would you like to call it? Geographic address?
Or geo address, perhaps, even?
There is something like, I think in Interpreter it's called street address.
Yes, but what if you're, I mean, okay, so I think it's a little weird to call it street address at this level. Geo address?
Yes. Geo address is more, it's better suit, I think, because street address sounds too specific.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so geo address would be then, so we're thinking of calling it geo address, not physical address. I mean, geo address, physical address, I mean, okay. So then the idea for geo address, like at a university, for example, where there's a, again, then there's a building name, right? Typically. And often there isn't a street, an external postal street address. Make sense? So I guess, yeah. I mean, I assume that what we do here is that the canonical print form of geo address will be just some nice, it won't be an address label, it'll just be some nice, I'm not sure. Again, let's find out what we can do with the current geolocation geocoder. Okay, let's talk about personal names. Okay, so what are you? Yeah, so there are a bunch of horrific things here. So what is your conclusion about this? That it's complicated.
Yeah, exactly. That there are many possibilities.
Right. Okay. Yes. Western name order, Eastern name order. There has to be the the whole zoo of Latin American names and their orderings, right? Yes, right. Patronymics in Iceland and so on. Fine. Okay, so there's a lovely posting apparently about falsehoods programmers believe about names. People's names do not change. Yeah. Right.
When I applied for Social Security name in England, they asked me for all my previous names. That was very funny.
That's interesting. That is an interesting question. Is previous names is actually something. I mean, being able to have that ability to store those will be useful, right? Because that's people where there used to be maiden names and this and that and the other. But if we have a notion of previous names, okay. So what are we basically going to try to do here? First of all, what is our ability to parse names at this time? What?
By the way, there's Prince is a very good example of former names.
Yes. That one is, I mean, the Prince glyph is that's beyond hopeless, I think. I think it has to be, assume all names are Unicode. But
yeah, but there is another thing is that, like, why would we parse names? Like, what this falsehoods blah 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 says is that you can't even assume that first name and last name. So
of course, that's right. The reason that we want to do this is for canonicalization.
Right. I think it's important that, for example, many people think that I have 3 first names and 1 last name, while I have 2 first names and 2 last names. And it would be great if I can hardwire in some notation that what is the true thing.
Fair enough. But
yeah,
I mean,
then even Romanization, if you ask Vitaly, his Romanization changed when Ukraine became Ukraine, because the Romanization changes between Russian and Ukrainian law. Like, they don't have the same alphabet either.
Yeah. Right. I suspect the end of his first name is different. Okay, but I mean, our main goal here is, canonical representation, because what we want to be able to do is, I mean, do we know what happens in things like, iOS? There is some canonicalization in the contact database. I think it's very simple, isn't it? I mean, I think it's basically just, or do you just type the name in however you feel like? Actually, I think you just type the name in however you feel like. But, the problem for us, as we've been through about 25 times, is recognizing, like what happens, in the contact database part of Siri, where you can give a subpart of a name and it will pick up that complete name because it knows that there's a limited set of possible names. Am I making sense? Right. So, plus, well, I don't know. Would Alan like to comment on personal name and its relationship to people data?
No. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think that we even expose separate given name and surname properties for people in people data, precisely because we'd have to kind of figure out case by case and country by country what the which slot is correct to stick each name into.
Sorry, what were you just saying? We don't expose in people data. So if I say who's got a really weird name, let's try I don't know. Let's try Mao. Okay.
There's no given name or surname property for a person. There's just name.
Okay.
So a full name we have only. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I bet that's not a full name. Why would you think that's a full name? Or we have a property called full name.
No, I mean we only have one full name, not separated by properties or. Yeah.
Right. Okay. But so if you give, I have no idea. But I mean, let's just try something like that. I have no idea whether the full name there is
I don't think the full. Yeah.
Okay. It's again
it
just
includes
a string.
the patronymic. Yes. Yes, that middle name is the patronymic in Russian. Yes.
Yeah. Well, give me a name of somebody, a Latin American name. Somebody in people data that I could preferably spell. Come on, we got some there.
Writer like Mario Vargas Llosa, I don't know.
Okay, what is that? Mario what?
No, it seems it's
like
the
this.
same.
Try Borges, for example.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a mess. Which name here? Oh my gosh, what a mess.
So Borges is his father's last name. Acevedo is his mother's last name, and all the others are his names.
Right. 4 first names, 2 surnames.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Someone was pointing out on the live stream. Okay. So let's see, what does that do if we ask for full name? Interesting. Okay. So fundamentally we've used strings so far. And I mean okay. Maybe we should try to solve the problem of name matching before we try to solve the problem of name canonicalization. Or maybe that's hopeless as well. I mean, the case that I've been talking about forever is the case where you say, Mr. Smith, Mary Smith, I don't know what we could say here, James Smith, okay, etc. So the question is who's the same as who? Right, which you need for any kind of contact lookup. And you also need for mailing list canonicalization, all those kinds of things.
I think that's hopeless nowadays.
Well, it's not hopeless. It's something that everybody does, including us, we're even required to do that for GDPR compliance and all kinds of crazy things like that.
Yeah, think about the fact that there are some languages where the last name changes gender according to
Sure, Russian, for example.
Yeah.
Right? So what's your point?
That it's very, very hard to do in general.
I know, but so we have to figure out what piece of this look, there's a piece of functionality that one clearly needs, which is given a list of names, given a list of canonical target names, match this list of incoming names with that list of target names. Am I making sense? And, right now there are all kinds of machine learning based solutions to doing this that use various kinds of context information. Incidentally, I don't even think we have the case for email addresses. We've never actually made a wrapper for email address, have we?
I don't think so.
And that's another thing we should consider, because one of the issues with email address is the same canonicalization thing. I mean, in other words, if I am, if I'm on the one hand, swolf at, swolf@rai.com versus, well, even, swolf at mail.wolfram.com. I don't think any of those may work, but anyway, being able to figure out whether those are the same or not, which maybe can't be done without communicating with the mail server. I'm not sure, but some of these things, like these prefixes, are there's the question of, can you tell whether that prefix is unnecessary?
No, but I think that's let's say old school, because now you have only the email addresses and not these internal old server addresses that were used before. I haven't seen that in a while.
Okay, fair enough. Well, then we should declare victory on something like that. Yeah, various people on our live stream are pointing out all kinds of other horrifying cases for names, like Henry VIII. What on earth is what is the full name? Now I'm really curious. Huh. That's pretty lame.
I send you the name of Spanish king.
By the way, regarding email addresses,
Why didn't that work? That was at least as a ship or something. Wow, I didn't know that.
Try the Spanish king. I sent it in chat.
Okay. Oh, that's exotic. Okay. Well, so what's your conclusion with this names business?
To me, the important thing is to be able to specify the structure. Now, if we have functions which are able to take a name and create that structure, that would be great as well. But the disambiguation part is important.
Well, so you're proposing that. What are you proposing? You're proposing last names, arrow, and then a list of names, for example? Are the last names always given in the same order? They're not, aren't they? And don't they flip around the mother's versus father's last name in different Latin American countries?
No, but once you have one order, that's it. So for example, in Brazil, they use mother, father. In most Latin America, you use father, mother. I think.
But don't you want to know? Okay, so then you have an additional. I'm not even going to start thinking about the modern world of same-sex couples and God knows what else, and what it means when you have. Let's not even try going there. I have no idea. Are there known conventions for that now?
Well, in most Latin American countries, that's not allowed. So
fair enough. Okay, fine. That's for the future somehow. Okay, because that's okay. Because then that will prevent that canonicalization. Okay, so but then, for example, like last names, like our, well, there are people like in the British thing. There are double-barreled last names. This is a huge mess. Well, what's your point, Jose? You are proposing that it would be nice if there is a structure to give, if there is a known structure to be able to represent that structure, but then if you have the structure rendering it in a dear so and so type form in a salutation, for example, seems that seems super difficult.
Well, I guess.
I mean, I don't really have a good test case because, I get all kinds of weird spam mail that says, dear Stephen, ... but my name is exceptionally straightforward. So I would be more interested in somebody like Francisco, what the corresponding things, what they do for you, whether they get it right or whether they're just utterly wrong.
The automatic spam usually is wrong, but and also, for example, in the US, usually they use my second last name for referring as if it were the first, which is problematic in many places. And then but of course in Latin America it's usually right pickup.
Right.
Right. That's why I use a hyphen outside Spain. And in fact, in England, in that discussion, they decided that my name without a hyphen was my previous name.
Your name has 2 words.
Yes, Martin Garcia are 2 separate words, but outside Spain, I put a hyphen in between so that people believe it's one only.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So
you know that Ricardo's last name wasn't picked up correctly by our own system for a very long time.
So I think the important thing is to separate first names from last names, because it's very common to sort people by alphabetically by last names. So
yes.
If we can know which one is which one, I think that would help enormously already.
Right. So I was wondering if we could have. I put that in the Rocket chat. So, for example, for Borges that you have previously there, something that could parse something like this would make sense for me, at least for the.
Yeah, but there is an ordering. Your point is there is an ordering for these names.
So the fact that you give first the given names and then the last names, or first the last name, then the given names, I think it's something you can. So the usual order here is give first the given names and then the last name. But for example, for phone books, you usually give order by last name. So they put, for example, the last name, comma, the given names.
Right. Look, I think someone on the chat is pointing out, I mean, there's just, names are a huge mess. I mean, they contain names of places, they contain things where there's just a single name, and it's not, where it's, I've known people who just have one name, not a given name, not a last name, just a single name. Seems to happen in places like Pakistan, I think. Okay, look, it's clearly a hugely complicated mess. So the issue is, and what we've done for, notable people, entities seems fairly sensible here. Although I have no idea if I were to type in something like, I bet we don't get this right, but let's see whether we do. We do. Fascinating. What would happen if I typed in, what would happen if I type in something like, okay, so this one I'm sure we get right. Famous last words. Okay, but if I were to type in something where those names are out of order, I'm sure we would not recognize it and probably shouldn't recognize it. Actually, what happens if I type in comma, that's not very happy. My gosh. Alan, is that what you would expect? Are you happy with that? Are you unhappy with that?
That's a whole bunch of different questions. I'm not surprised. I don't know. I mean, it's not a way that people.
Yeah, it's not a way people are going to enter it.
Enter a name, and that's dangerous a little bit to start supporting some explicit, last name, comma.
Yeah, I agree. On the other hand, for semantic import, for example, that might very well show up.
Right. I mean, that's what I was thinking. Like, it's the kind of thing that I would think might be useful. Semantic import, or sure, interpreter of person.
Right.
But
okay, so what we've got then is, what we don't have right now. We don't have a personal name interpreter right now. So for example, that's another, Smith, John. What does it do? And, you know, do we have any hope of cracking these names? I wonder if there are, you know, do we have a, you know, maybe there could be a German themed thing like that.
It will be ambiguous in some cases. For example, Martin is both a name and a surname in Spain. So it's going to be completely impossible to know.
Right. Well, in the US, that's obviously the case. I mean, in France, if I'm not mistaken, there's a canonicalization of first names. Is that true? Is Etienne still here? He would know.
As far as I know, no.
What's
like
that?
Thibault can be written in at least 5 different ways.
Say again?
Thibault can be written in like 5 different ways, as far as I know.
I mean, what do you mean by canonization?
That there's only a fixed
well, for a given person, there's only one way to write the name of this person. Yes.
But you can you if you're given 2 names, I mean, why is it that in France, for example, people often write the surname in capital letters?
To distinguish it from the first name, I guess.
But why do you need to do that? I mean, aren't they always written in a particular order?
No, we switch. Sometimes we put the first last name first.
Without a comma?
Yeah.
Oh.
And also, in the case of someone like Jose, it's useful to know where the first name ends and the last names begin.
I see. So that's why you capitalize.
Yeah, at school, they often ask us to write the last name before, because since there were many repetitions in the first name, then they could easily sort, I guess, by last name. I remember at some point I took the habit of writing my last name first because at school they asked it so many times.
Yeah, and you have the confusing case of having both names be able to be first name. In
my case, yes.
Okay, well, look, I think we've come to no conclusion other than this is a complicated area. And I think the main problem that we have is we don't completely know what we're trying to achieve. I mean, we would like to be able to canonicalize. It may not be possible. And it may be worse to canonicalize wrong than to leave these things as strings. But I think that the clear thing that we really want to be able to do is the mail merge problem of, are these 2 the same? But it is also possible that that problem is unsolvable without more information. You know, if you have a name and address, you have a much better chance of deciding if they're the same than if you just have a name. All right. Well, okay, we've achieved something, at least with respect to phone numbers. Let's at least get that on the way. Okay. I think we're wrapping up here.
Stephen, I have a last question.
Yes.
Should we, like currently, interpreter of phone number returns just a string. Should we name the one that returns the addressed object differently, or should we break backwards compatibility?
I don't know yet. Let's build the, I mean, we could call it, we could start off calling the new one structured phone number or something, although that's not actually our correct convention. Structured phone number usually means the input is structured.
It means that we don't call alpha to parse it. So it's already the case that structured phone number works for phone number. So I guess we should call it phone number object.
All right, yeah, fine. Let's do that for now. I'm not convinced that that's ultimately right. Boy, people who are on the live stream, gosh, we have 3 live stream meetings coming up. At the top of this next hour is one about function repository. After that is annotations, and after that is visualization. So stay tuned for people who are interested. We'll be back. Sorry, we could come to no conclusion with respect to, this names thing. We need a separate discussion, and probably we should involve some of the people who deal with mailing lists at the company to see what we actually need there, as an example. Okay, so who's PMing here? Is it Sushma?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, so let's get a quite separate discussion that involves some of those people,
Mm-hmm.
and let's try to. Maybe you could try to find out what they already think they use.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Talk to you all soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.